So I'm sure you guys have been great at your own self-introductions, but this is Jenny Pownell from the Tutoring company. So one of our other Australian-based clients. We chatting
Hi,
back and forth
Jean-Paul.
for a little while. Jean-Paul is from Big Improvements. And he said, so we've been working together over the last 6 months or so. And we thought it'd be good to have you both on board and chat about all this Australian stuff. I already covered with Jenny, Jean-Paul, that our plan for this, as you probably got from Paula's messages, is just to have a recording of this, stick it online as a resource for people, a bit of an interesting touch point for everyone to learn about the industry in Australia, how it's adapting, what the changes are, that kind of thing.
No, that's great. I think, look, I was on a conference call probably four weeks ago now with about 14 or 16 tutoring companies across Australia, all varying in sizes. And yeah, this was when we were all talking about going online. So what I'm actually interested to do is find out exactly just how many businesses have also been impacted by this, because I don't know if that many physical locations have actually moved across. And I do know one thing. I saw a report from the Australian Tutoring Association saying that the majority of physical locations lost up to about 70% of their kids. So it's been a substantial whack.
Yeah, that's a rough deal, all right.
Mm.
Well, at least I suppose it's beneficial to know that everyone's in the same boat with it to a large extent.
Yeah, it's you know, some of the guys were able to move across and they went online pretty quickly and they were able to navigate that. But what we found is, for instance, primary school kids in our business, which is what we had 60% of, really found.
Oh yeah, I think we might have lost your audio
Yeah,
there,
I lost
actually, JP.
sound there.
Might be an internet connection.
Yeah, I think it is.
Hopefully that should have fixed it. Sorry.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
That's all good now.
Yeah, and so what we found is a lot of our primary school students are basically waiting for us to reopen our venues. And so because we did less high school students who could cope with the software that we're using, they're the ones that we've sort of kept. So we're in a quite an interesting situation. We've also changed slightly the way we do things. We also did a substantial price reduction to keep people on board. That was another thing that we did. So, but I'm looking at the numbers now compared to what we were this time last year, and we're unfortunately, as hard as we worked, even in that 35% category on what we were this time last year. So I don't know how many kids we're going to get back walking in through the door when we eventually do open. But yeah, we've got to work pretty significantly now over the next 6 to 12 months to rebuild ourselves.
Sure. So I have a few questions here I was going to run through. Do you think we should hold on for Julia, or we just fire ahead and then whenever Julia can join us?
I'm just going to quickly reach out to her, just let her know we're here. It won't be a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it warmed up there?
Yeah, I was just about to comment on that. It's been fantastic weather, and I think that's absolutely helped with quarantine. I think having a nice outside to go into makes it a lot more bearable. Yeah, it's been lovely, especially the last couple of days.
I think it's probably
we're about to go into winter.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, is the Australian winter
just
desirable almost at this point?
I'm in Melbourne, and I hate it.
Oh really?
Jean-Paul, where are you?
I'm Sydney on the northern beaches. So, but
so
that's not where I usually live in Cape Town, so I'm a bit of a refugee at the moment. So I'm set up here.
At least you're a little bit warmer there than me.
Well, absolutely. We got that cold snap last week, but yeah, haven't seen anything significant yet, but it's coming. I'm sure it is. I mean, we got snow the other week, right? So down in Canberra way. So it'll definitely cool down.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting. I've just sent a message out to Julia, but what we'll do, we'll start. She's usually online at this hour, but I think what's happening in Cape Town, a lot of them are taking advantage of the corona times. They're only between 6 and 9 a.m. can they do something. So everybody I know is on the footpath at the moment because they've been locked into their houses for 5 weeks. They only let them out this week. So
oh wow,
yeah, they're all crazy. Yeah, why don't we
Sure.
start? Because I'm just looking to see if she's picked up the messages. She hasn't yet, but I'm sure she'll
absolutely.
join us in a few minutes.
Well, I might start with a general point in question to be more specific to Australia, because TutorCruncher are obviously more used to working with Northern Hemisphere clients, but your school terms are quite different. So, I mean, in the UK and in the US, we're used to, our current expectation, I think, is that schools will probably restart in September. But because you're working off different term dates, do you have different expectations as to how that might play out?
Well, I mean, Jenny might have some feedback here, but what I will say is that, yeah, you're right. We are the actual calendar years. So our summer is around Christmas, as you know. And it looks like what's to give you a bit of an idea, Queensland is actually going back to school just over a week from now. Apparently a lot of the schools is going to open the doors on the 23rd, which will be, so in the next week, year 11 and 12 is going to go back. And then on the 23rd, apparently the private school, one of the ones that I work with, they're opening their doors and they'll be back in full swing. But the majority of Australia at this stage hasn't sort of made a decision about what they're doing. I know in the ACT, which is where I mainly work, so in Canberra and Sydney, obviously they're holding back because we've got a lot more corona cases in our states. And the reality is I don't think we'll be opening our doors until the beginning of term 3, which is approximately 10 weeks from now. So I think realistically they'll gradually let kids go back to school, and I hope they go back in term 3, and then we can open up our, our physical locations. But I mean, what state are you in, Jenny?
Melbourne, in Victoria. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you. I don't think there's going to be much happening with respect to schools being open until term 3. And I think like even in Queensland, I think that's going to be quite slow reopening for the rest of this term. And I don't think we're going to see full reopening of schools until at least the start of term 3.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you there. And so so that'll be for us. So we've got June, July holidays coming up, and it'll more than likely be after July when they come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might be slightly ahead of the Northern Hemisphere, and that might be an interesting use case to see.
Yeah,
well, the thing that, I mean, our infection rate, mortality rate in Australia is very low compared to, say, for example, in England, which means that we're able to open up things much sooner than what you guys probably are able to. And I think things too, like, the government's just launched a COVID app that can track people that are in contact with other people that have become positive for COVID. And I think the success of that app take up is going to very much determine how quickly restrictions are lifted. The more people take it up, the sooner restrictions are going to be lifted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, what she's saying is correct there. We've got a much lower number of infections here, and people, and our mortality rate's been significantly low. We've done a really good job of flattening the curve. So, there's been a bit of a spike in Victoria this week in one location, but I mean, we're talking less than 100 deaths, I think, all up. And then a lot of those came in as a result of people coming off, cruise boats. So we've done a job of holding it down. So, there's talk that Australia and New Zealand are going to open up what we call a bubble, which means we'll be able to fly between New Zealand and whatnot in the next, literally, I would say in the next 2 months. So yeah, we're quite lucky, and unless there's a second wave, I think things will get back to normal. But social distancing is the new thing. I think you'll find that everybody's just accepted this is what we've got to do going forward. And it'll be a long time before I think anyone's going back to a full cinema or getting on a flight, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right. And just to frame the situation we're in now and how the industry changes from here on out, over the last, say, 5 years or so, have you noticed changes that the industry is making anyway, shifts that the industry or the market was it going towards an online model regardless, or do you think that was fairly slow in the uptake?
I'll provide mine. I'm sure Jenny's got some experience there as well. One of my colleagues went to the ATA conference, Australian Tutoring Association conference, back in the beginning of the year. And one of our biggest competitors in the market, which is Kip McGrath, a global company, they turned around and said that they have worked very hard in the last few years to try and get kids on their platform. Now they've got 22, I think he said 22,000 people on in their centres, Australia-wide, which I actually was surprised. I thought it would be much bigger than that, considering there's such a significant brand here. And they've only been able to convince 500 students out of those 22,500 to go online. And the only people who came on were existing students. So it was a really interesting stat. So what it's showing us is that people in Australia aren't ready for online. It's not like Asia where they're a lot more geared towards it and they're ready to go for it. Here, they expect you to be in the home or at a location. And I know how much difficulty we've had moving people online and convincing them that this is something they should at least try. I think they definitely lower the value of the tutoring the minute you go online.
And that sounds quite relevant. I know Jean-Paul mentioned the difference between the Australian market and the Asian market. Jenny, you either do or are planning to work quite heavily with a lot of the Asian market, weren't you?
Yeah, so that's still in progress as to what's going to happen there. But like I do agree, Australia is they're very backward with respect to accepting online tutoring. And there are a number of factors for that. I believe a number of reasons why that's the case. And I do think that this current situation that's forcing a lot of people onto the online platform is actually changing a lot of people's minds. And I think that a lot of my students that are online aren't going to go back to home-based. I reckon a lot of them are going to stay where it is. And I expect that my online tutoring will in fact increase quite a bit beyond what it would have otherwise. Only because a lot of people now realise, they've come in with certain assumptions about what they thought it was, and they've now realised it's not what they thought it was. They've been pleasantly surprised, and they've really enjoyed a lot of the benefits, like not having to drive kids or pick kids up. There's been lots of benefits they hadn't realised, and I think that's going to keep a lot of people in online tutoring. But we've still got a long way to go to try and get a lot more people to understand that, as Jean-Paul said, there is no devaluing of the service. It's exactly the same service. And there are many benefits to doing it as opposed to doing it home-based or centre-based.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping as well that a lot of our high school students especially are going to cling on to this. Their parents are going to see the benefit in it. We learnt that larger groups on Zoom for us aren't the way to go. But then again, I know some guys that have done a very successful job, but they were high school students, right? So they treated them more like a class. They were able to engage. And they've also said the same thing, that they're hoping that people will continue to look at that model as something that they're going to continue with down the track. And I really feel the high school market is geared for this. Parents don't need to pick them up, drop them off. They don't need to get themselves there. They can go straight home, and they can engage pretty well online. But for our primary school kids, it's a very different kettle of fish. We're not enjoying the process anywhere near as much because we're having to work really hard. Whereas when we're face-to-face, we can actually look at them in the face and go, "Now, look, you need to do this." Because especially we work with a lot of kids who have got some learning disabilities and whatnot as well, and maybe have ADHD and things like that. So you need to be a little bit more attentive with them. And online is a little more challenging for that particular target group. But for high school kids, I think it's actually a great platform.
That's interesting. Yeah. Do you have any ideas when dealing with primary school children about how you or other companies could grab their attention more, or like link them into online?
I think with primary school children, it's it's really the same with high school. I think it's very much about the platform you use to deliver your online classroom. Because the platform you use to deliver your online classroom is pretty much then going to determine what you're able to do within that classroom. And some online platforms are better adaptable. There's a lot more you can do with them with respect to delivering lessons that are more suited to primary years. And other things have got, you know, they're a bit more restricted. So it really is a matter of being able to use a platform that's a lot more adaptable, that you can do a lot more with, and that's going to be able to engage the primary year students. I mean, we have students from prep right through to year 12. So 4 or 5 year olds all the way through. The main ones that we find that we're having to work a little bit harder with would really only be in the P2 group. And that's only because they need many more hands-on activities because they're still developmental learners. Whereas the years 3 to 6 really don't have any issues with them or with anybody else.
Yeah, and that's it. We made a decision as a company not to take any more P2s on during this period just because it was too challenging. And the issue is too, as parents who are working from home, we call it the pump and dump. What they do is they'll put their kids in front of a computer and then just walk away. And it just doesn't work. You know, these P2s are easily distracted in the home environment. I think that's why their parents like them coming to a particular venue. We can get them quite focused. We can get them moving. That you'd be surprised with the feedback that I've heard from my staff about kids getting up and walking away, or something coming and interrupting them, or a phone going, or they're playing games while they're trying to do a tutoring session. So it's, and admittedly, our guys, it was a learning curve. Had to go online from offline to online with that age group, and some of the team really did struggle with it. So we're putting that on hold for the moment, and like I said, we're hoping we will be back in our locations in about 2.5 months. Yeah. And if that's the case, then we'll take that group back on, because they're a decent sized group for us. But yeah, just we found it a bit too challenging considering how many kids. Like, look, we were at 500-600 kids before this whole incident. So just the numbers are just too challenging to work with. And then not only that, we had to pump a lot of training into our guys too on how to do all this online. Jenny, I am interested to know, what software are you using, or are you referring to the whiteboard and things like that you're using? Or using?
Yes, I use the online whiteboard.
Which one are you using?
Group board.
Ah, right. Okay, we haven't looked at that. Yeah, we use the lesson space.
Yeah, so you've been using that for right since the beginning. And I've been able to, because I've been using it for so long now, been able to adapt it to my needs. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to stay with it either. This is the thing. I think that in the current circumstances, one of the things I think we all have to be aware of is you have to always continually keep your eyes and ears open for things that could possibly improve your business. And never think that just because you've got one thing that seems to be working, that you're not going to, that there's not something that can be even better out there. And so I think it's always a matter of, yes, I've been using Group-board, and yes, I'm very happy with it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to fulfill what I want it to do. So who knows what the future holds. But at the moment, it's doing everything I want it to do, and we're successfully tutoring the P2 group through that platform.
Oh, that's great. Positive to hear.
So on that note, getting the impression that for those older students, it seems quite likely that after all this ends, that a lot of them will continue on with online if it's been working quite well for them so far. But do you think that for those younger students, most of it is just going to go back to face-to-face? Or do you think that there might be some new whiteboards or gamified online learning that might try to adapt to that younger market now as well as a result of all this?
There is an awful lot of stuff out there already. There is a plethora of apps. There's so many websites. There's a lot of really brilliant stuff out there. It's just a matter of knowing how to actually incorporate it within your lessons and in an online lesson space. And if you've got the right platform to be able to do that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be development of a whole new lot of material. I don't really think there will be, because I think there's already so much good stuff out there. It's the integration of that material that is going to change.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, drawback as well to a point you made earlier, where you mentioned that the service remains what the service always was, and there's no devaluing of it, only based on the fact that it's online. Obviously, a lot of people, and I imagine a lot of parents, are probably coming to this with the impression that for any age group, a face-to-face interaction is a very different thing, especially I imagine for one-to-one classes, than it is for online. So if you have parents voice concerns like that, or how would you approach people who did have those concerns, that it is a very different thing and that people might not, even older users might not react the same way or take the same from a particular lesson?
Yeah, that's one of the big feedback issues that we've been dealing with. And I mean, you know, even at the moment, we're calling parents, and it's admittedly we had a lot of problems going online. Okay, switching across from, and we went early, a lot earlier than most people, which I really, in a way, wish we hadn't have done. But there was a bit of panic. We were in the middle of the term. You know, we started to move at week 7. Okay, of the term, and then we moved hard, we moved fast. Our software provider didn't keep up with us, unfortunately, and then so that gave them a negative experience. And now what's happened is that they've obviously read that schools all over the country have had major failure with their systems. They've just put their hands up and gone, this is all too hard, you know. And for us to pull them back in, I'm not going to lie to you, it's been really challenging. I mean, we're calling about 120 odd people at the moment who left us, you know, over the last so many weeks, going, look, here's a couple of free lessons, come on and see what the platform can do. And we're just getting flat out no's. And that's something that I didn't expect, but I think parents are also, they're tired. You know, they've been homeschooling now for a number of weeks, especially in my state, ACT, New South Wales, they went early. And the issue is that it hasn't been a perfect experience for them. And I think we're going to have to work hard to convince people to jump back on. Now, what I will say to you is that I know people are desperate to work to get their kids into some sort of tutoring too, because the current school system for the majority of these kids is letting them down. And we've seen an uptake in new, you know, admittedly we haven't turned our marketing back on, but we're already seeing an uptake in new students in the last couple of weeks. And I anticipate that people are going to take advantage of, well, for us, slightly cheaper tutoring than what we usually offer. But also, I think they don't want their kids not being pushed through to next year. And there is a real chance, unless the schools can get through their curriculum, which I doubt they're going to be able to do this year, that they've got to make some hard decisions on what they're going to do with these kids. And the government keeps saying, oh, well, they're not going to slow the school year down. And what I'm hearing from all the different states and the different systems that we're talking to are saying, well, we're not going to. But the reality is, if the kids haven't worked through the curriculum, where are they going to put the cutoff point? And, you know, are they going to be suitable enough to be pushed through to next year? Or I actually have a feeling that school holidays in December are going to be a lot shorter this year, because those kids are going to need more time back at school, either in January or late in December. I think that's possibly what might happen. So long story short, I think the parents are going to need more tutoring services, and they're going to realize that as the year goes on, especially as we get into the second part of the school year.
Okay, that's good. So you, obviously it's a bit of a dip at the moment, but you'd expect in the long term that it actually might benefit you.
No, I think we're going to be bigger than what we were before we came into this thing.
That's great.
Mm.
And in terms of attracting those parents, or what have you found as being the best message? Just the ease of use of online, or reassuring them that it's not like it was in the first few weeks when everyone was in a panic, where we have a system now?
Look, I mean, Jenny, you might have better feedback than me, because we went through a horrible time and we're still recovering. So we've struggled to reassure people that it's going to be great. But like I said, I haven't turned the marketing on. As soon as we do that, we may see a different bunch of kids come through. But at the moment, we've been just trying to stabilize the kids that we've got. But I mean, Jenny, I'm assuming you've probably had a much nicer time of moving across.
Well, look, don't get me wrong. We've certainly lost a lot of business, absolutely. But it is, I think it's picking up again now that we've managed to kind of sort out what it was that people were really wanting and how we needed to use our platform properly. So I think we kind of got that right now. I also think, like, I 100% agree with you. The online schooling has made life really difficult for parents, but that's kind of, in a sense, bought us some clients as well. So we've got some clients who purely, because of the nature of our platform, where the tutors are really in, they really supervise the school-based tasks. So the kids are able to get through the curriculum and they're not falling behind. A lot of parents are really enjoying that, and we've got from anywhere from an hour a week from 2 or 3 hours a day with a tutor. I've got one who does, she's probably doing she does about 20, 22 hours a week with her children. And they just focus on all of their current schoolwork, and they're getting all of it done. In additional work as well. So the kids are being extended in areas that they're really loving. They're able to backtrack and catch up on areas that they're now discovering, you know, that they need a bit of extra work in. So you know, that's a big variety of clients, you know, from an hour a week to 20 hours a week. And then there are other parents who still want the traditional style of tutoring that isn't anything to do with school-based tasks. It's about filling in the gaps and making sure children understand the work that the school is delivering to begin with. So there's, you know, a completely different set of clients there, two real distinct types of clients. And I think once this is all over, I do think, like John Paul does, I do think that there's going to be perhaps a bit of an explosion in the tutoring industry. A lot of people who have come on board and who have a tutor now, who would never ever have sought out a tutor in the past, are not going to give up their tutor. They're going to stay with it because they've realised that there's lots of other benefits they haven't considered. Because a lot of people, you know, I know a lot of my clients have said to me, yes, we're just doing it a term at the moment, a term at a time at the moment. And also because it's online, we've got a lot of clients who are also international. So they could be, you know, students who are at international schools, for example, studying an Australian curriculum at international schools, or they've returned to Australia because the school in China is closed, or, you know, the school wherever else has closed. And so they've come back to Australia temporarily to continue having their kids educated. And so then they've got tutors on board to help. And they've already said, oh, the kids love it. They're forming a relationship with their tutor. We'll stay on board with this. When we go back, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you noticed any major differences between those international clients and domestic Australian clients in the way that they view or approach online tutoring, or is it largely the same?
The international ones are the ones who tend to have more hours. They tend to want much more supervision. But I don't really think there's much more, that there's a lot of difference in their perception. Apart perhaps from Chinese clients, we had quite a few Hong Kong-based clients. They've dropped off now that the Hong Kong schools, now that the schools in Australia have closed, the situation for them has changed, so that they have dropped off. But they were all over it. I think it was something that was very familiar to them, because there's a lot, the awareness of online learning is much greater elsewhere in the world than what it is in Australia. Even in England, there's so much more awareness in England than what there is in Australia. And that's where I'm hoping, you know, that there's going to be a lot more people staying with online tutoring in the future once this is over.
Great. Were you going to say something there, Jean-Paul, before you
I like the Hong Kong market. I was there. I fly through Hong Kong regularly as part of my travel, and I go and have a look at all the tutoring facilities that are in almost every shopping centre there. It's amazing. You've never seen anything like it. And what Jenny was saying, yeah, and in mainland China, I've spent a lot of time there as well. Their English tutoring programs are quite incredible, but Hong Kong loves to tutor. And what I love about China is they want to learn the English. So, you know, we're hoping to get in there later in the year. In fact, we were due to go out in Easter and actually go and visit a few clients up in mainland China to see if we could bring some business on board. But yeah, it's for some bizarre reason, Australians have just been slow to adapt to online tutoring. I think there's been a lot of online training that's gone on, which is remote based. I mean, you can get every course online now, and you can, you know, do your St. John's ambulance and everything else. You can do 50% of that pretty much online, and then you just got to go and do the physical, you know, resus component. But, you know, and in that sense, the workplaces have picked that up. But getting people to actually pay for physical online, I think they felt that it was the poor man's equivalent. You know, they were getting something less. Then they really have this feeling that if they're sitting next to someone or they're sitting face to face with them, they're going to get more out of them. And the good thing about this, and this is what Jenny was saying, is that people are now experiencing online. And I think, well, we know we're going to keep a number of kids online. I'm actually really excited about that. I've been wanting to do something in the online space for about a year now. But the reality is that had we have gone early, no one would have really, very few clients would have taken it up. And the reality is that, you know, we've got a pretty intensive marketing program geared towards our locations. And we've got so many locations too. So, you know, especially in Canberra, we're everywhere basically in the north and south. So it was easier for us just to stick to what we knew. And not only that, our locations are nowhere near capacity. So we just thought, well, it's easier to drive them into a location. Parents kind of like that. But I am looking forward to seeing how many kids we can keep online after this. I think we'll definitely have a number of kids, and it'll be a great platform for us to start with.
Do you think that's been a learning curve for parents, that since schools have moved online and have started delivering online classes, that they've realized, okay, maybe I just have to reset my expectations as to what happens here? But schools have had those teething problems as well as tutoring companies.
Yeah,
I think, I think people's parents' experience with schools is very different to their experience with tutoring. Tutoring organisations that are doing it online, from what I understand, in most regards, are doing it quite successfully, whereas schools aren't. So, yeah, I think that's the problem.
We're delivering about 200 sessions a week at the moment. And I know when we've had problems because the phone goes, we haven't had problems in the last 2 weeks. We've got our software right. We've got our staff trained right. We're able to deliver it. And I mean, look, parents are quick, especially when they're paying money every day to have their child there, are quick to cancel if they're not happy. Okay, we found that out. And yet we've seen very few kids leave us in the last couple of weeks, which has been exceptional. So yeah, you're right. I think we have delivered it a lot better than what schools can. The big problem is a lot of these schools just weren't geared for it. They weren't ready to do it. Google Classrooms is not online education. You know, it's a platform that's not used well. And, you know, the fact is that a lot of the things they thought it could do aren't capable of doing it. The classroom sizes are no good. One thing that we found is that kids do not know how to use their software and the hardware, and we've got to sort of step them through it. And so one of the reasons why we use the lesson space is because it tells us where the problems are. And all right, we get the occasional one where the cameras don't turn on and whatnot. And then we go, all right, let's try an alternative platform. And if it doesn't work, then we definitely know there's a problem. We'll either call the parent or we'll get them to step through. But it's allowed us to move forward. But like I said, we got punished those first 2 weeks when things didn't work. Okay, we lost a lot of kids. And we wouldn't have, I don't think we would have lost as many had the software, had it worked. But we pivoted stupidly. We pivoted very quickly. We changed the way we were going to run our programs. We were going to offer a lot more time with the kids. We were going to give them a lot more sessions, but we were going to have more online. And what we didn't realize is that groups, which is like class groups, just weren't ready for this. And I assumed because I could use Zoom and, you know, my company's been using it for years and years and years now, we just assumed everybody would be able to just click on and make it work. And then, of course, when Zoom changed all their rules, that just broke us. I mean, it really just created a huge amount of problems. So classroom environment, hard, one-on-one or two-on-one, which is what we do. I don't know how many you have in a group, Jenny, but in this,
don't do groups.
There you go. So
we only do one-on-one.
Jenny's in a very unique situation where if there's a problem, you can identify it really quickly, get the kids, I'm assuming, up and running pretty quick and move on. You can't do that in a group environment, and we learned that the hardest way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm. That's why schools are battling.
Yeah, that's understandable. And obviously you were a lot more primed to take that up because you've been looking into it for so long and you had people who are used to using it. Have you found as well, as obviously we've spoken a fair bit about Zoom or Zoom equivalents for online learning, but in terms of the management system and the back end of it, so things like TutorCruncher released recently, the sharing the URLs in lesson reminder links, or people logging on to get the URLs for those lessons, even things like online lesson booking or tutor listing through the website. Is that anything that either you've been exploring or that you've changed? Is that, have any of those services help support, or
we use the lesson links was the main, like we've always used them since we switched across. The big issue for us is when Zoom just decided to change their rules at the last minute. Literally, they changed it over a weekend after we'd already had a week of problems. And then suddenly we thought, okay, our customers are going to be happy with this. And then this whole password thing kicked in, and then, you know, so it was just a nightmare. Not only that, and then also our clients had to log on to their accounts. And now that you're just sending out just a string, just here's your lesson. It's brilliant. Okay, it has, because literally my office was dealing with 50 to 60 phone calls a day. We can't get on, we're having these problems. Now we're, you know, a couple of calls a day, we're dealing with it. And then not only that, but we've given our tutors access to the back end, which we've never done before. And they're phoning the parents if the kids aren't online, like, where's Jimmy today? And does he need a hand? What can we do to get him moving? So it's for us been a lot better. We haven't used any of the other online systems just because we've put our clients through such significant change. We just felt that if we added more to it, we were going to lose more clients. So we just thought we'd make it easy. Here's your lesson link, and let's move along. What we have done is, for the first time, we're doing session reports at the end of each session, which for us we're so excited about, because I've been wanting to do it for about a year now. And one of the reasons why we moved on to TutorCruncher was so that our guys could actually update those reports and send them out to parents straight away. Because one of the biggest feedbacks that we had, especially because, again, we're locations, not all our parents walk in. Some of them are just sitting in the car waiting for little Jimmy to jump in. So, and when they say, what did little Jimmy do today? He'll go, oh, you know, we played this or we did this. And of course, the parent thinks they're paying all this money to have little Jimmy playing some card game. We know the reason why we did it, but now we get to actually write in a so many line description about what we did. And we are hoping that our parents will appreciate that a bit more, and it should allow us to connect with them and then hopefully extend our life with each of our students, because yeah, it is a little bit more challenging in that sense. So that we're using, they're the two things that we're using at the moment that we're excited about.
I would say that as Fion knows, I'm always exploring and trying to do more. I'm always annoying Fion and Paula. But I suppose it sounds like I've been using TutorCruncher for a lot longer than John Paul. But things like, yeah, I agree, the lesson reports are fantastic. Since the introduction of everybody going to online, I've introduced the SMS messaging for lesson reminders as well. That's been really good, in addition to the email reminders. We've always used the calendar lesson link in order to go into the classroom. We don't have, on my view, there is no other way for parents to access the lesson. I thought there was meant to be an update that created a lesson link somewhere else in the dashboard. That's just feedback for you, Fion.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have that. I don't know why. It's not a big issue at the moment, but it probably would be better rather than having to go into the calendar and find the lesson. It would be easier if that link was just there, which I thought was supposed to be there as part of the update. We've always had our tutors able to go in and book lessons, phone parents. That's always been available, and that's been a fantastic feature. It takes a lot of pressure off admin when tutors are just managing their own lessons. They can book them, they can change the times. I only surprisingly recently discovered, probably in the past couple of months, the email client and email tutor feature on the job once all the lessons were booked. I just never had paid attention to that. And then, so I'm loving that. So we can book in the whole term and send out the schedule. That's really fantastic. So I think for me, I'm constantly amazed by the things I'm discovering about TutorCruncher. It's got so many little hidden gems in it, and things constantly crop up that make me think about, oh, I wonder how I could do this. And sometimes I'm able to figure it out and suddenly realise there's a feature there of TutorCruncher that I'm discovering yet again. Or emailing you guys, and you're able to help me out and point me in the right direction. And I'm sure there's still more things. There's still more little hidden secrets in there that I'm sure I'm going to discover. So I seem to be discovering something new in TutorCruncher every week, I think.
Right, fantastic to hear you've had a good experience with it. I know that we were chatting just before Christmas there with yourselves when you're over in London, Jenny. So you were exploring things like online lesson booking, right? Is that something that you've gone further with, or has that been put in the back burner while this is all going on?
We did that over the Christmas period, but I wasn't really happy with the way that all ran. Only through the website end of it, not through the TutorCruncher end of it. The way it's done through TutorCruncher is really good, but the biggest problem we came up, which has been unresolved, has been the client payments for when they book in, because I can't have clients going onto the website, booking a lesson and then not paying for the lesson until the lesson's completed, as it is normally now. For an online client where there's no phone contact, there's the potential that they are never going to pay. So the only way that that's going to work is for prepayment of online bookings through the website. And until that happens, I'm not going to go back to that until that feature is fixed or made available, because it's just way too hard. It's too problematic, and it's opens up too many possibilities for people to not pay.
Yeah, fair enough. Is that, Jean-Paul, have you had any problems with adherence or with any of your existing clients who've stayed with you in terms of, has their mindset changed regards following up invoices or?
Well, to be honest, as you know, we're still transitioning across. We use a third-party product to do all our invoicing with, and well, I guess we're not such a unique case, but we do prepayment for everything for the full term, and then we do fortnightly direct debit. So that's been the main goal for us, is just working out, okay, exactly how does everything work, and then how does it work on, we're still trying to get the invoicing and everything sorted out so we can actually roll that across, because the reality is that TutorCruncher has reduced our administration time dramatically compared to what we were doing before. I know that once we go into full automation and we've got our financing component added on there, I'll go from, 18 months ago, we had 9 people working in my office. Okay. We're now down to 4. We're about to go down to 2 plus a couple of part-timers. And that's because I feel that once we have the whole invoicing process automated, it'll work really well. But it's for us just getting our head around the whole process. And I know we've got a call in a few minutes about this, but understanding how we can prepay and then also move people around, on that prepayment program, if they need to be moved and whatnot. But we're actually really excited about that. And the reality is that, look, we looked at a lot of software over the past 2 years, and TutorCruncher, which I really do not know why our team ignored it the first time around, made most sense. And, we spent $25,000 in development and got nowhere. And then I saw your product and went, why did we ignore this again? And it was because some legacy staff that we had wanted to do things a certain way with the way that we scheduled. What we found is that we're rewriting our scheduling book now. COVID's been good for us. It's made us do things faster than what we would have. And it's forced us onto the platform that I always knew I wanted to go onto. And, so in that sense, that I really appreciate what the software does. But with someone who's got so much data background, there's a few little tweaks that, of course, Paula knows constantly I'm sending through little emails every week. I take a couple of minutes to draft JP suggestions. But essentially you've got a great project there and a great program that does the majority of things we need to do. We're just needing to learn. We actually need to understand how to use it is probably our biggest weakness as a business.
That's the thing, John Paul. It's the understanding how to use it. When you do get it, like for me, the accounting side of it is brilliant. It is, like seriously, it's a set and forget. The money just miraculously appears in your bank account every day, and it is such an easy thing to reconcile accounts. Literally the accounting side of things, and I'm not kidding, would probably take, and I do it, it probably takes me anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And that's
and Paula, Jenny, do you do pre or post payment on your sessions?
It's a mix.
Okay.
The majority of people, it's just payment once they have completed their lesson, but that's automated. So there's no issue with being paid because it automatically comes out of their bank account or their credit card at the end of the lesson anyway. So there is, there's no issues with that. And I know so many of my clients, when they always ask how do payments work, and when I explain it to them, and I just explain to them that once they've entered their details and it's set and forget and you're just going to be paid at the end of the lesson, the comments are pretty much always the same. Everybody always says to me, oh, that is so fantastic. That's just so easy. People don't want to be sent invoices that they've then got to sit down and go onto their computer and pay. They like the idea that they don't have to have a whole sum of money up front to pay for a whole term in one go. That's another big feature. There are a whole heap of other clients who prefer to do that, so that's fine. So that's where you've got the credit request feature. You can send that out and they've got their term payment. But these are the things that I like so much about TutorCruncher, is that flexibility to be able to work in with what the client wants. It's not just about what works best for my business. It's also about TutorCruncher. I can do a number of different things with respect to billing and invoicing. Listen to what the client wants, what we think is going to work for them, and then it will be, well, let's do the pay as you go for you. And that they love it. They're wrapped with it.
So just a quick question while you mention that, Jenny. With pay as you go, how many sessions a term are you getting? Are you getting 10 sessions a term?
What do you mean 10 sessions?
Like, are you on average, if your kids are coming once a week, do you get them every week of the term?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because you're one of the exceptions. Most guys who do pay as they go don't get that. So what I did...
The vast majority. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You've got great kids, because I can tell you now, when we moved 3 years ago, when we moved from post pay and billing and whatnot to direct debit, we had, I think we moved almost 700 kids across to direct debit. And what that did is it increased our income by almost 20% overnight, just because we put people on regular billing and regular cycles, and parents just understood that's how it worked going forward. But you've done well, but the majority of guys that I provided advice to and whatnot have told me that they're not getting the 10 sessions a term. You know, they might be getting 8. Yeah, and so
It's interesting.
we've done really well. We've been able to, and not only that, kids just keep coming until they stop with us, you know, and they give us 2 weeks notice. So we've been able to extend with direct debit the way that we run it. And not only that, I don't use any of my own funds to pay for my staff or my expenses. I've collected all that money up front, and then we pay everybody after that. So from a cash flow perspective, it's worked for us.
Yeah.
I like what you're doing, but when you've got, I don't know how many kids you've got, but I mean, like I said, we were running at 600-700 kids. To allow them to choose how they wanted to pay was just going to make it a bit challenging. But we take upfront payment and we take direct debit, either credit or bank. They're the 2 options.
Can I just add though, on that matter of direct debit? Even with TutorCruncher, you can set up direct debit. You can have that system set up, and I did do that to begin with, but I found it was problematic in that if you've got, so you could have a set amount of money being debited from somebody's account every week, sorry. But if they've got a child who's sick, that lesson is still paid for outside the cancellation period. And then you've got the issue of refunding money that's in credit. It just became a little bit too messy. Whereas the beauty about the way I do it now, for me to be able to say to a client, if your child is sick and it's not within that cancellation period, then you don't pay. You only pay for what you're going to have. And they love that. They love it.
And what's your cancellation period, just quickly?
So if it's within, so I was just changing it. If they cancel within 24 hours, it's a 50% fee. If they cancel within 12 without notice, there's no refund.
Okay, that's actually pretty reasonable. I mean, we allow them to go and use, like we call them credits or make-up sessions. But you know, we're in the process of changing. We used to let people call literally on the day. We had to stop that because it was just costing us.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And
they take advantage of that.
Oh, trust me, Jimmy's got a runny nose. Next thing you know, he's not coming.
Yeah.
But we went to a 5-day period for our changes in classes, and most of our clients have been pretty good with that. But we are in the process of re-examining our sudden last minute changes, that 12 to 24 hour thing. And I like what you're doing there. I think that could be a good idea for us. So thank you. That's something I will take from the call, because I think it's actually a pretty good way to do it. But yeah, no, we use Easy Debit as well, and we do it. There's a whole lot of follow-up and everything that we do that makes it a bit easier for us. But like, we are re-examining this now, and like I said, Fionn knows about this because we've actually paid to develop a whole bunch of software to be able to run on the back end, so we could process Easy Debit transactions, because we did have 600 to 700 kids when we started this process. Now that we're down to a few hundred, in a way, I wish we just moved across to the platforms, but you learn this the hard way. But I do appreciate what you've said about TutorCruncher, because we're only just beginning to open the box now because we were forced to. My staff were very quick, very slow to move off the existing platforms onto this new one, and this forced us a little bit. So it's been a good thing for us. And can't wait to grow. And
just on a note, Fion's probably going to tell you anyway, but TutorCruncher will automate those cancellation payments as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about with my staff earlier tonight, because I said,
So this is what I'm saying about the admin. There's so little time spent on it because so much is automated.
Yeah. No, look, I'm excited. I think it's one of the best things I've done in my business was actually bring TC on board and integrate them. I'm just really disappointed that it's just taken us so long to do it, but we just had
That's so right. Just keep looking forward. Just keep looking forward.
Yeah, exactly. No, this has been great. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate it.
That's okay.
It was great to chat to you both. That's a good productive conversation. We should probably wind up. Obviously.